Hey guys, how's it going? It's Andy from Go Investing. In my last video, I talked about renewable energy stocks, and it seemed like a lot of people wanted me to talk about Enphase Energy, ticker symbol ENPH. So because of that, I wanted to talk about solar stocks. Solar stocks have been around for a long time, and it's been pretty hit or miss for a long time, but with the expected growth in the solar industry, in addition to the expected growth in renewables, I wanted to give it its own video. For the 5 stocks that I have in this video, I tried to pick a nice variety between the types of companies that they really are. They are all solar stocks, but they have different types of businesses in the solar industry. Some of them are focusing mainly on residential. Some of them are focusing on these massive facilities that are going to harness a lot of energy and store it on site. Some of them are going to be focusing on converting the solar energy from the panels to storage in a house. And some of them are just focusing on all of them. And so I wanted to give kind of a variety of solar options out there. I will disclose I do not own any of these specific stocks. I do own the ETF TAN, which is an ETF that follows all of the solar industry. Before getting started, I have to say this is not financial advice. These stocks are not listed in any particular order, but I did want to talk about my favorite one, which is the most requested one, which is Enphase Energy, ticker symbol ENPH. But before getting to that point, I would appreciate if you hit the like and subscribe button, as I'm trying to grow my channel to 10,000 subscribers. So Enphase Energy, ticker symbol ENPH, is down 29% in the past year, but when you look in the past 5 years, it's up 7,600%. This is going to be the best performing stock in the past 5 years, and it makes a lot of sense. Because of its recent success, it is recently added to the S&P 500 and was upgraded to buys by a couple different investment bankers. What Enphase Energy does is they focus on microinverters. This is the technology that allows the energy that is created from the solar panels to be converted to AC, which can be used by the houses. And so this is different than a lot of the solar panel companies out there because they're not focusing on the sales. The way that they're getting most of their revenue is coming from a deal that they had in 2018 to be the exclusive microinverter provider for residential installs with SunPower, ticker symbol SPWR. And this came after they bought the company's microinverter business in 2018. When you look at their history, their revenue growth is very impressive with a 48% increase on a compound annual growth rate basis. Their last earnings reports had them with record revenue, which is what you want to see. But there's always been talk about supply chain problems. Anytime you have a technology company, you've seen it with the solar industry, you've seen it with the automotive industry, you've seen it with the microchip companies. The supply chain problems are pretty apparent right now, and it's resulting in a lot of volatility when it comes to most stocks that you're looking at. Here's a slightly outdated graphic that I found that shows where most of their revenue is coming from. It's the spread between the US-based sales and the international sales. In 2020, it was sitting at 18% international, and you always want to see a switch to the growth there. But the US market, I like them kind of focusing on one over the other. You're going to have, my expectation is that the renewable energy growth internationally is going to be faster than in the US. There is a lot of hope from a US-based company, and it'll be interesting to see if they're going to be able to continue this 48% revenue growth on a compound annual growth rate. So Enphase Energy, it is up a lot in the past 5 years, but I think for the long run, this might be one of the safer plays out there. You're not focusing on the sales. They do have some storage capabilities. They did acquire a company called Clipper Creek that is an EV charger. So they do have some other parts of their business, but for the most part, they're selling the microinverters, which is a crucial part of converting the power from the solar panels to usable power, AC power that can be used by the houses. And that's why I think Enphase Energy is going to be my favorite stock from this list. Next up, we're going to talk about SunRun, which is ticker symbol RUN, which is down more than 60% in the past year, but it is up 440% in the past 5 years. So we went from Enphase Energy, which does microinverters, to SunRun, which is going to be the largest residential solar panel provider. They have 630,000 customers with a growth rate of 20% year over year. With the numbers that they provided, they're expecting a 15% annual solar growth rate in the next 10 years. This will go from 200,000 houses with solar panels in 2011 to 2.9 million that we see today, and the expected 14.1 million in 2031. And when you are currently the largest provider of solar panels in the US for residential, seeing this growth, you're likely going to be able to take advantage of that pretty well. And so I like this option for the residential part. There are some worries about where these solar panels are going to be coming from as rising interest rates are expected to go up. This is going to hurt pretty much any type of company like this that needs a lot of scaling to be very successful in the future. But the thing that with residential is that a lot of the solar panel growth that we're going to see is going to come from new builds, not stuff that's pre-existing. You are going to have some numbers like that, but the expectation is that the infrastructure building, parking lots that solar panels can be put on top of, and new houses, mainly in the Southwest, is going to be a huge source of growth for them. And if interest rates are going up, it's going to be more expensive to build and going to be more expensive to buy. So that might kind of hamper some of the expected growth that they see to the 14.1 million that they expect in 2031. But they do have reoccurring revenue of $787 million from their subscribers, with an average contract life remaining of 17.3 years. This gives them revenue stability. And for a company that's involved with solar, stability is not something that you see very often. This is a very hit or miss type of industry. You get waves of extreme optimism for solar, and then you have some months where it's not looking too good. And having that stability of the average contract remaining of more than 17 years, it's going to give you some stability with revenue. When you look at their graphic of subscriber value versus creation cost, they have a net positive net subscriber value of $7,600. So for every new customer that they bring in, when you take off the cost of acquiring said customer, they get a positive value of $7,600. With their full year outlook, they have the expectation of 30% growth in solar energy capacity installed for full 2021, with a total value generated to be $700,000 for 2021. I think this is one of the safer plays out there because of that contract length. Residential, there are some problems with it, but I do think that being the largest in a sector, in the solar for the residential, has its benefits, and the expected growth that we're going to see in residential solar into the future, even if it's not up to the 14.1 million houses with solar in 2031, there's a lot of growth, and that's why I really like SunRun stock, ticker symbol RUN. Now we're going to go to SunPower, which is ticker symbol SPWR, down 45% in the past year, but up 340% in the past 5 years. Similar to some of the other stocks we'll talk about later, they've really been simplifying their business. We talked about some of the various ways that companies can invest in the solar. They're going away from the manufacturing business and the utility scale business that they had in the past. They've lowered their net debt as a result of that and improved their gross margins. So similarly to when I talk about GE being a conglomerate, simplifying their business and focusing on one thing that they're really good at, I think is beneficial for most companies out there. And they're currently looking to sell their commercial business in 2022. So if you look at their revenue, that's a big reason why their revenue has gone down pretty steadily. They're going to be focusing pretty much exclusively on residential and storage. They are number 2 in residential behind SunRun, but a lot of the benefits that I talked about for the growth expectancy for SunRun applies to SunPower as well. They're looking to have $100 million in energy storage bookings by the end of 2021, and the ability to provide the solar panels and convert them into storage. 27% of their solar customers are purchasing storage. I expect that number to go up in the future as it becomes cheaper to store this actual energy, instead of just the current state where it's you bring in the solar, you use the energy, or you lose it. And so I think storage makes a lot of sense in the long run. Maybe some incentives will lower the price, or the technology will come and bring down the price. And I think storage is going to be a huge source of growth for them in the future. Future growth from new builds, as I mentioned with SunRun, likely not going to be scaling for existing houses. It's going to be a lot of the new building, and we'll have to see if those numbers continue with the rise in interest rates. And they recently had their price target lowered. So if I was going to pick a residential play, I think SunRun is better than SunPower. But if you picked one or the other, I wouldn't knock it too much if you pick SunPower. I think it does have its positives, but if I was going to have to pick one, I'd go with SunRun. Now we're going to go to Canadian Solar, ticker symbol CSIQ, down 49% in the past year, but up 125% in the past 5 years. When you look at Canadian Solar, they have 2 main parts of their business. They have CSI Solar, which is the solar module manufacturing business that includes inverters and storage. Then they have their Renewable Energy, which works on the larger scale solar power plants internationally. They currently have 6.6 gigawatts in operation, with 24 gigawatts in the pipeline. And looking at their storage projects, they currently have 21 gigawatt hours in the pipeline, with 3 gigawatt hours under construction. When you look at their business, most of their revenue is coming from the CSI Solar, which is the manufacturing part of their business. And when you look at the spread, it is a pretty international spread, but most of their revenue is coming from Asia. So some of the storage and some of the capacity is getting spread evenly across the regions, but a lot of the revenue is coming from Asia. They do have currently 63 gigawatts of deliveries, and it's balanced with their locations, but yes, revenue, half of it is coming from Asia. They expect to see accelerated shipments from 14.5 gigawatts in 2021 up to 20 to 22 gigawatts in 2022. With this industry growing, these are the numbers that you'd expect to see. You want to see growth, and the accelerating growth that we're seeing with pretty much all of these companies has me very excited. They see their battery storage revenue almost doubling to $400 million in 2022. This is the worst performing stock over the past years, but you could see that as a company that's going to do well in the future, that's not as overextended as something like an Enphase. It's up 7,600% in the past year. So there are some positives and negatives associated with having bad returns in the past, but it is up over the past 5 years. And after the poor year that solar stocks had in 2021, it could bounce back. They do have solid looking guidance, but a lot of things can happen in the next year that removes a lot of the optimism that they have from their guidance. So as a sector, solar is looking good, but I wouldn't give the guidance too much strength looking at it right now. We'll see what happens. And then finally, we're going to talk about a stock that I included in my last video, First Solar, ticker symbol FSLR, down 17% in the past year and up 139% in the past 5 years. This is a stock that is not down very much. Well, I guess I should have seen that one coming. I kind of looked at where I placed it. Makes sense that it fell. So let's finish off the video with First Solar, ticker symbol FSLR. Their focus is going to manufacturing. They sold off a lot of the other parts of their business. They recently sold off 10 gigawatts in projects to really slim down their business. They are the US's largest solar manufacturer, so you do have that benefit. They do have an international presence when it comes to their production facilities. They do have plants in Ohio, which currently has 6 gigawatts with the recent addition of 3.3 gigawatts and a new facility in Ohio. But they have production facilities in Malaysia and Vietnam, and they recently had their second plant open in Vietnam with a capacity of 1.2 gigawatts. The slimming down in the business really makes it attractive to me, and when you have the manufacturer being the largest in the US, the expected growth looks very good. It's very similar to how I feel about SunRun, is that when you're the leader in a type of business, in a sector that's expected to grow exponentially in the upcoming years, I think that puts you in a great spot. Manufacturing is going to have a lot of the supply chain problems compared to some of the ones that are just selling the solar panels, so that is a huge risk, but I think First Solar does have a lot of optimism for me going forward. Overall, all these stocks have their pros and cons. Solar is a sector that has a lot of risk associated with it. You recently had the infrastructure bill get halted because things aren't looking good, and as a result, solar stocks fell significantly from that news. We need lots of investment to lower the price. We need incentives like tax credits to have these new builds include solar. Solar is in a great spot to become the energy source of residents and major businesses, but we don't have that ready yet. Solar is still a long ways away from taking over the top spot as being the number one energy source in the US and internationally. But as we're seeing a lot of the changes in energy targets, you have countries that are hoping to go net zero with carbon emissions by 2050. And one of the ways that you're going to get that is by investing heavily in solar. So all these stocks, I see the positives. Some of them have more risk than others. You have Enphase, which I love from their past history, but they are up 7,600% in the past 5 years. You have some stocks like First Solar that are the US's largest manufacturer of solar panels, but if they get beat out in price again, like that happened like 10 years ago from China, they're in a really tough spot. This is a type of business that is very focused on manufacturing costs, and if you can't keep up, you're going to get pushed out. And so all of these have some positives and negatives, and I'm very excited to see where they're going in the future. I think it's very difficult to pick a favorite. That's why I've invested in TAN, which is the ETF that follows all of them, so that I can get the benefits of one or two stocks doing very well, but not having the major risk of First Solar is down 17%, Canadian Solar is down 49%, 45%, 63%, 29% in the past year. These do have a lot of risk associated with them, and I think buying that ETF is how I'm personally limiting my risk exposure. So let me know what you guys think about solar stocks, and let me know what renewable energy stocks you guys would like me to talk about in a future video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate all the support, and I will see you in the next video.